Okay, so I've started the recording. So today we're going to finish with the Minibuffer session. So let me paste the link to the Emacs docs web page, and we're going to resume the Minibuffer session and try to finish the Minibuffer today. So I've just pasted the link to the emacsdocs.org page in the chat. Feel free to ask any questions, and with that, let's get started. So we are going to go to the Minibuffer and start with the completion here. As again, you can see the keys that I am using at the top of the panel. I also make this video recording available at the end of the session. So with that, let's start with the introduction to the completion options. So completion is quite helpful to enter arguments. Let me start Emacs here. I'm using the one without the display, the graphical display, so you can better see the Minibuffer, the mode line, and so on. So the usual tab, ret, and space keys, they are available for completion, and they are actually rebound in the Minibuffer for special completion commands. You can also type question mark to see a list of available completion alternatives. Okay. So although completion is done in the Minibuffer, the feature is sometimes available in the ordinary buffers too. So with that, let's go through each of these in more detail. So Alt X, for example, uses the Minibuffer to read the name of a command. So let's try this. Going to the Emacs window here. I think Alt X, you can see that in the Minibuffer, and if I hit tab, for example, it auto completes. Right. Now let's say I want to enable autofill mode. Okay, I can just do AU, okay, and I hit tab. It tells me all the possible completions, a lot of different options available here. And to get closer to it, I can just say auto -F, and that's the only thing that it completes now with the tab. So tab displays a list of all possible completions in another window. So just typing AU tab -F tab, right, this one will allow you to complete the autofill mode, right? So Alt X AU tab -F tab completes to autofill mode, right? Let's look at some of the other completion commands. So of course, tab is it completes the text in the Minibuffer as much as possible. If it's unable to complete, it will show a list of possible completions, which is Minibuffer complete. You can also use space. Space will complete up to one word from the Minibuffer text before point, which is Minibuffer -complete -word. Okay. Now this command is not available for arguments that often include spaces, such as file names. So if you are usually on a GNU Linux system, will you use small case for the file names, uses dot or hyphens. So this might not work with file names such as in Windows, where if you have white spaces. Enter ret key is to submit the text in the Minibuffer as the argument, so it possibly completes the first completion. This is the affiliated to minibuffer hyphen complete and exit. Now you can use question mark also to display a list of completions. Now there are other commands that can be used with the completion list. Okay. So you can do like page up, page down. So let's see this. Alt X tab, right? Now I am in the minibuffer. I see the completions window. If I do Control V, the end of buffer, I can do Alt V and Control V. Now I am scrolling down the completions. I can now do Alt V, it will go back. So this is in the completions buffer. Now there are 3 buffers here. If I do Control X O, it goes to minibuffer. Control X O, the other window goes to GNU Emacs buffer. Control X O now in the completions buffer. So there are 3 buffers here. So this is Alt V. You can also do page up or prior, same thing. Return or mouse 1, mouse 2 will choose the completion at the point. Again, we have seen tab, it moves point to the following completion alternative, which is the next completion. You can do shift tab, move to the previous completion alternative. Right? Tab and shift tab, move the point to the next and the previous ones. You can quit while in the completion list buffer by pressing Q, and it selects the window showing the mini buffer. So let's do Q, it closes it, it goes back to the mini buffer. Right? Now let's go back to the completions window. If I press Z, it will kill it and go back to the GNU Emacs buffer. Okay, so these are the some of the commands available in the completion buffer. Right, let's go to the next part, completion exit. So on pressing enter key, ret, which is minibuffer hyphen complete and exit to submit the argument, there are 4 types of behavior that is possible. So if you use strict completion, it basically accepts only exact completion matches. Okay, otherwise Emacs will refuse to exit the mini buffer. It tries to complete. If no completion can be done, it displays no match after the mini buffer text. Okay. Of course, you can always leave the mini buffer by typing Control G to cancel the command. So let's, for example, do Alt X nothing, hit tab, because of course there's no command there, so it says no match. Okay, I can do Control G to quit the command execution. The other behavior is cautious completion. It is like strict completion, except that if you hit return the enter command, it exits only if the text is already an exact match. Okay. So this is used for like reading file names of files that must already exist. The third type of behavior is permissive completion, which allows any input, and the completion candidates are just suggestions. So typing enter will not complete, it just submits the argument as you have entered it. Of course, the fourth behavior is permissive completion with confirmation. Right, so it will usually prompt you to give your consent. So if you type tab and it completes the text to some intermediate state, typing enter will not submit the argument. It will ask for a confirmation saying confirm after the text, and then you can confirm again with enter key and you can submit the text. So you can tweak this confirmation behavior by customizing the variable confirm non-existent file or buffer. The default value is after completion. Okay. If you set this to nil, Emacs will not ask you for a confirmation. It will fall back to permissive completion. And this kind of behavior is used by most commands like reading file names, Control X, Control F, or if you want to read buffers like Control XB. Right. So let's see if I can do Control X, Control F. Let's say find file bar.txt. Say there's a new file. Let's say bar.txt. Okay. And let's say I want to kill this. Okay, it'll basically do prompts here. Okay. Right. Same thing with Control XB. It prompts you saying switch to buffer. Default buffer is scratch here. I can hit tab and it gives me some options there. Right. So how the completion alternatives chosen? So Emacs attempts to offer plausible completions under most circumstances. It will perform the completion using one or more completion styles, which we will go through next. So these are some criteria for matching the Minibuffer text to completion alternatives. If a style yields one or more matches, that is used as the list of completion alternatives. If a style produces no matches, Emacs will fall back to the next style. So there is a list variable called completion styles which specifies the styles to use, and this is the order of the default completion styles. Basic is a matching completion alternative that must have the same beginning as the text in the Minibuffer before the point. Okay. Furthermore, if there are any text in the Minibuffer after the point, the rest of the completion alternative must contain the text as a substring. Okay. So the example here, we have already seen that using alt text like autofill mode, it completes there. Partial completion is little aggressive. It divides the Minibuffer text into words separated by hyphens or spaces, and then it completes each word separately. So here they give an example of completing the command names em-l-m is supposed to complete to Emacs list mode. Let's try that. Alt text em-l-m. There's more options here. So what we can do is try alt text say em-limo. This completes to Emacs list mode. A star in the Minibuffer text is treated as a wildcard. It matches any string of characters at the corresponding position in the completion alternative. There is also a completion style called Emacs 22, which is similar to basic, except it ignores the text in the Minibuffer after the point. Okay, it is so called because it was the behavior in Emacs 22. Now there are additional completion styles. One is called substring. So this matching completion alternative must contain the text in the Minibuffer before point and the text in the Minibuffer after point as substrings. Okay, the same order. That's very important. So for example, if there is a text in the Minibuffer called foobar, right, and say the point is between foo and bar, so it will match something like a foo b bar c, where a, b and c can be any string including the empty string. The flex is an aggressive completion style. It's known as FLX or fuzzy or scatter completion. it attempts to complete using in-order substrings. So foo will match strings like this, Frodo or F bar Bazoo, right? Of course, there is also initials which will try to complete acronyms and initialisms. There is another completion style called Emacs 21. So it will basically try to match starting with foo bar if the text in the minibuffer is foo bar. It's very simple completion style. It only match that exact string. So you can use different completion styles in different situations by setting the variable completion category overrides, and the default setting always says to use only basic and substring completion for buffer names. Okay, so these are the different completion styles. Let's look at completion options. Now the command names are case sensitive. So if I do something like alt text capital AU, it will not complete to autofill mode. Alt text AU, because it says no match, because it is indeed case sensitive, right? So when completing file names, case differences are ignored if the variable read file name completion ignore case is set to true. Now, such as in GNU Linux, it is value is nil for case sensitive file names, but is set to true on systems that have case insensitive file names such as Microsoft Windows. So when completing buffer names, case differences are ignored if the variable read buffer completion ignore case is set to true. The default value is nil. Also, when completing file names, Emacs usually omits certain alternatives that are considered unlikely to be chosen, as determined by the list variable completion ignored extensions. Right? So each element in this list, completion ignored extensions, should be a string, and any file name ending in such a string is ignored. So an element that is ending in /, it represents a subdirectory name, and the standard value for this completion ignored extensions is like .o, .elc, which is compiled Emacs list files, and ~ backup files. So if you have a directory, say, that contains foo.c, foo.el and foo, this will complete only to foo.c, not to the object files and compiled files. If all possible completions end in otherwise ignored strings, they are not ignored. So in that case, foo.e will complete to foo.elc. Shell completion is an extended version of file name completion. We'll look at using the shell in a later video. Again, if completion auto help is set to nil, the completion commands will never display the completion list buffer. You must type the question mark to display the list. Again, the value can be lazy, and Emacs will only show the completion list buffer on the second attempt. So there is nothing to complete. The first tab will say next character is not unique, and when you do the second tab, it will show the completion list buffer. There is this completion cycle threshold which can be set to true, and it will cycle through the different completion alternatives. So each subsequent invocation of the completion command will replace that with the next completion alternative in a cyclic manner. And if you give the completion cycle threshold a numeric value n, some number, it will switch to this cycling behavior only when there are n or fewer alternatives. So there are some variables that you can define if you want to be very specific about the completion cycles. Now the minibuffer has history, so every argument that you enter in the minibuffer is saved in a minibuffer history list, so you can use it later on. So let's try an example here. Let's do alt X autofill mode. Okay, so now it says autofill mode enabled in the buffer. Now I am doing alt X asking for battery status. Here power AC and battery is full. So now if I do alt X alt P, it shows me the most recent command was battery. I do alt P again, it shows the second previous command, which is autofill mode. Okay, so you can do alt P, alt N, you can go back and forth the history list. This is the previous history element and the next history element, because you can use the up and down arrows if you want to move to the previous or next line of a multi-line item before going to the previous history item. So these are respectively previous line history element or next line or history element. You can also do regex, regular expression searches. So if you want to search for a previous item in using regular expressions, you can do alt R regex P. Or if you want to check in a later item, use alt S, right, for the minibuffer history. Now if you type alt N in the minibuffer when there are no later entries in the minibuffer, Emacs will try to fetch from a list of default arguments, the values that you are likely to enter. So think of this as something like a future history. So this future history for file names include several possible alternatives you might find useful, such as file names or URL at a point in a current buffer. The defaults put into the future history in this case are controlled by the functions mentioned in the value of option file name at point functions. Okay. By default, its value invokes the FFAP package, which will try to guess the default file or URL from the text around the point. So in order to disable this kind of guessing, you can customize the option to a nil value, and then the future history of file names will include only the file that is visited by the current buffer and the default directory. Now if you edit the text that is inserted by the alt P or alt N minibuffer history commands, this does not change its entry in the history list, but the argument that you edit, it goes at the end of the history list when you submit it, as it's a new command that you have entered. A numeric prefix argument N to alt R and alt S means that you are fetching the nth matching entry. This is a previous matching history element and the next matching history element. You can search this through regular expressions. You can also pass a numeric prefix N to get the nth matching entry. An uppercase letter in the regular expression makes the search case sensitive. You can also search through the history using an incremental search. We'll look at this later on. I search minibuffer. So as you type in the minibuffer, it will automatically try to find the respective entries in the history. Emacs keeps separate history lists for several different kinds of arguments. For example, there is a list for file names used by all the commands that read file names. Other history lists include buffer names, command names used by alt X, and command arguments used by commands like query replace. Okay. The variable history -length, it specifies the maximum length of a minibuffer history list. Of course, you can add a new element which will delete the oldest element in the list as it gets too long. If the value is true, there is no maximum length. The variable history delete duplicates, it will specify whether to delete duplicates in the history or not. If it is true, adding a new element will delete from the list all the elements that are duplicates. The default value is set to nil. Okay. Now let's look at repeating the minibuffer commands. So every command that uses the minibuffer once is recorded on a special history list, the command history, together with the values of its arguments, so that you can always repeat the command. So all text is recorded there, and since all text uses the minibuffer to read the command. Okay. So let me do Control G here. So if I do Control X escape, it will re-execute the recent minibuffer command from the command history. So I'm going to say Control X escape. So that was the previous command, it executed battery, and it basically runs again and tells me the value there. Now to see the entire command history showing all the commands, you can do Alt X list command history. It tells me all the commands that we have executed so far. Okay. Now you can specify a numeric argument, so which command to repeat. So 1 means the previous one, 2 means the second previous one, right? So let me do, say, Control U to Control X escape. So which was the second previous command. Previous one was battery. The second previous command was to run the list command history. So now it's executed here. So it basically works by turning the previous command into a Lisp expression and then entering a minibuffer initialized with the text for that expression. You can of course change the command by editing the Lisp expression and execute it. And when you execute it, the executed command is added to the front of the command history unless it is identical to the most recent item. Now once inside the minibuffer, for Control X escape, you can use the usual minibuffer history commands to move through the history list. We can do incremental searches as well by setting iSearch resume in command history to a true value. So let's go through this. I can do or Control N to scroll down, Control P to scroll up, move up, and so on. So all those commands work here. It's just another buffer, right? List programs can re-execute a command by calling eval with the command history element. So when we learn about Emacs Lisp expressions, you'll know how to like write your own custom functions and modify existing code and so on. So the last two sections in the minibuffer relate to passwords and prompts. Sometimes you want to open a remote file in a different machine across a network such as FTP, or you want to log into a different machine using SSH, right? So in case you want to enter a password. So Emacs will display a prompt in the echo area with a string like password here, and then you type the required password and hit enter to submit it. So to prevent others from seeing your password, every character that you type is displayed as an asterisk instead of the actual letters. So most of the features and commands associated with the minibuffer, they cannot be used when entering a password. Of course, there is no history or completion. You cannot change windows or perform any other action within Emacs until you have submitted the password. Okay. And while you're typing the password, you can press del to delete backward, characters. You can remove the last character that is entered. There are some other commands that you can use, like Control U will delete everything you have typed so far, Control G to quit the password prompt, Control Y to insert the text from the current kill into the password, the kill ring buffer, and you can type enter escape to submit the password. Now Emacs may require you to answer a yes no question during the course of such execution. There are two varieties here. Okay. The first one is it will prompt with Y or N. You have to give a single key as a response, which will either exit the minibuffer and deliver the response. So as I showed earlier, right? So we can do say Control XF temp say foobar.text. Let's call this foobar. Okay. Now if I kill the buffer without saving, right, Control XK, it basically prompts with saying capital yes or no. Okay. Now this is the second type here, where you have to type in full. The reply should be in full. So if I say yes, it will kill this. Okay. So this is for serious consequences, like killing an unsaved buffer. Emacs will prompt you with this full option. Now of course in this behavior at the command prompt, you can do other small commands like recentering the selected window with Control L. You can scroll that window using Control V or Alt V to scroll backwards. You can switch to another window using Control X O. History commands will work, Alt P, Alt N, and so on. And if you want to just cancel the command, you can do Control G to dismiss the query and quit the minibuffer and the querying command. Okay. So this completes the Emacs minibuffer. In the next session, we will look at running commands by name and the help chapter. Let me paste the link to the YouTube channel where I will make the video available. I have also updated the GitHub repo with the notes from today's session. So let me paste that link as well, that you'll be able to find this quick reference notes. With that, let's stop here, and in the next Emacs session we will go through running commands by name and the help option, and we'll continue going through the Emacs manual. Alright, thanks for listening. I will see you in the next session.